What are borders? We all know that the First and Second World Wars pushed and obliged millions of people to move and seek new safe places. In Syria, I think the biggest wave of migration was during the Ottoman occupation, which lasted for 400 years. Since that time, people in Syria settled with no big movements out of the country until 2011, when the horrible war started. Language as a border. When you cannot communicate properly and cannot move freely, there are borders. Sometimes moral and psychological borders are more important and more dangerous. As a writer, I think that language can be a big border. To achieve a good communication, we need a mutual language, not only between two different countries' language speakers, but also among the same language speakers of the same country. Can you imagine what misunderstanding can cause? Misunderstanding can lead to a war, or at least to big gaps. Misunderstanding in Syria. In Syria, majority of people lost the good mutual communication among all different parts of the society. This led to fears. Then each part was fortified within the limitation of its narrow understanding. They built new, unreal, and elusive borders. When man creates lingual borders, then dialogue becomes impossible. Religion as a border. Thoughts, beliefs, rules, traditions, and restrictions in any society create borders. With all these limitations and rules, you are not free, so you have to follow what they allow you to do, to think, and to react. Religion in Syria became during the war, and even before it, but in an indirect, silent way, a kind of borders that creates later displacement and segregation. The war then created new borders among the cities in the same country. I couldn't, or even I didn't dare to cross the superstitious borders between districts in Homs. The city was divided into two according to the religious background. I couldn't travel to many cities in Syria as I used to do before. I became a stranger in my own homeland. War of identities. Many groups of people in Syria misunderstood the other. Misunderstanding led to refuse the other, and later led to demonize the other in preparation for his atonement and then killing him. Each group believed that it has alone the ultimate truth. All groups were fighting for that alleged truth. It was a war of monopoly of truth. It is a war of identities, loyalties, and affiliations, as Amin Maalouf, the well-known Lebanese author, mentioned in his important book, Killer Identities. New kinds of borders. In Syria, new borders were created between those who carry weapons and those who do not. checkpoints became a new type of borders that can determine whether you are innocent or not. The slogans, flags, and pictures became a sort of borders. The result was, if you are not with us, you are against us. No other options were available. A real threat. I was, and still I am, with no one and against all of them. Since I belong to a certain group in Syria, I was threatened with death, and because I was lucky, one of my neighbors saved my life. When he called me one day, I was in the newspaper and he said, "Never come back home. Go anywhere, but don't come back. There are 3 armed men asking about you, and I won't be able to protect you." A parallel world. During 7 years of war, between 2011-2017, the window in my home turned to be a new kind of border, separating between 2 worlds. The world outside my home, which was full of violence, fears, weapons, snipers, checkpoints, armed groups, and all kinds of dangers, of which kidnapping may be the least. And the world inside my home, which was full of classic music, movies, books, candles, songs, and social media when the internet was available. A world that I tried to create with strong determination and hard work to achieve the balance, psychologically at least. Writing was the most powerful way to empty my memory of scenes of the world outside my home. The window became my only way, sometimes for days or a week, sometimes more than that, to know what was going on. It turned to be like a local newspaper for the urgent.